he is, folks, fresh off his throne, lecturing again with that condescending tone. Does Bob live in a pineapple under the sea? Does Bob live on a pear in a huge galaxy? Bob will never learn, he can't see truth. He thinks the ground we walk on is shaped like fruits.
By the end of this video, you will see why anti-flat earthers are science deniers. Why they can't go along with current science, because then they couldn't remain a glober. On a side note, I'm going to prove that they project their dishonesty onto us. And I'm going to do that with just a couple sentences each from these guys. But let's get back to the point. They need gravity. To live on a sphere, to have vectors downward 360 degrees, you have to have a force pulling toward the center of that ball. So they have to deny Einstein relativity, or they twist it. And here is going to be two quick common tactics from two professionals on what we go against, because they know that they can't support the modern science because it would destroy their model, and they know that Newtonian gravity fails fundamentally right out of the gate. So listen to these tactics.
I do not discuss modern physics, general and special relativity, and cutting-edge physics with people that think the Earth is flat. Okay? I find that they don't have the background nor the insight to have a meaningful conversation on modern physics. I limit them to Newtonian physics. I don't discuss anything with them that doesn't involve Newtonian physics, because you have to understand that thoroughly before you go on to general and special relativity.
The real reason he won't discuss it is because he knows it destroys his globe. He knows that relativity dictates the ground rises up to meet the apple. You can't have the ground rising up 360 degrees. But there is an explanation. Einstein relativity does give an explanation, but you don't hear it often. You'll never hear it from these anti-flat earthers, but you'll hear it sometimes from professors. And I've heard it from the top dog here on YouTube, so I'm going to play that later in the video.
In the case of the atmosphere, when you have an external force acting on the mass of the atmosphere and displacing that mass in the direction of the applied force, down, that is overcoming the natural tendency of the gas to go out in all directions. And that is demonstrated by the fact that we have a pressure gradient in our atmosphere.
Well, no, the Earth can't be moving upward.
So you heard him plain as day, going against relativity. And you heard him in the same video talking to his followers, not flat earthers, saying there's a downward force. So let's hear what the professors and the scientists have to say. But first, let's hear McToon's horse shit.
You can't tell the difference between accelerating up versus if you're nearby a large mass like the Earth and not accelerating up. You can't tell the difference. That's the equivalence principle. It's not that the ground is actually rushing up. It's not that you're actually like moving upwards like the Flat Earth Society people think.
That's crazy, Toon. You're calling Brian Cox Flat Earth Society and Sabine and Veritas? You just said that's what the Flat Earth Society people claim. Well, these people are going to also claim it. So does that make them Flat Earth Society? This is your own team.
Cosmology is based on Einstein's theory of general relativity, which is a theory of gravity.
You and the ground beneath you are literally rushing up to meet the apple.
The apple doesn't hit Newton on the head because the Earth pulls the apple down. The apple hits Newton on the head because Newton accelerates upwards and headbutts the apple.
I want to ask you, are you watching this video in an inertial frame of reference? Well, I mean, do you feel weightless? No. So you are not an inertial observer. Your situation is exactly the same as someone accelerating on a rocket ship in deep space. And let me be clear, I don't mean that being at rest in a gravitational field is like accelerating in a rocket. I mean it is the exact same thing. You are accelerating and there is no gravitational field. Gravitational fields do not exist.
Gravity puts us in a non-inertial accelerated reference frame. And we have to say that the surface is what's being accelerated upward.
That all things fall at the same rate. Newton doesn't explain it, really. It's rather convoluted. There's no real explanation of that. With Einstein's theory, the explanation is that they're not falling. It is the ground that is accelerating up. It is the ground that is accelerating up.
When you were sitting in a chair, you were quite literally being accelerated upward.
Gravity is not a force, and since there's no force pushing down on you, that means you're currently accelerating upward.
In general relativity, gravity is not a force. You have no weight, so the only force on you are these normal forces pushing you up. So you are accelerating upwards.
It's not that you're actually like moving upwards like the Flat Earth Society people think.
Well, no, the Earth can't be moving upward.
If you'd hold an accelerometer steadily in your hand, it'd tell you it's accelerated upwards. This isn't hypothetical, weird, theoretical physics talk. You can buy one and just see what it says.
Any deviation from inertial motion is a real acceleration. And real acceleration requires a real force.
Damn, that's crazy, man. Why are y'all denying your own science and putting it off on us? Like it's our claim. Sounds like it's modern science's claim there, Slicky.
This causes the clocks near the Earth to run slower than clocks far away.
For example, time passes more slowly the closer you are to the Earth.
When charted out on a space-time diagram, this leads to a time gradient or temporal flow about a gravitational mass. And just like an object caught in a river with an eddying current, any smaller mass near the central one will be forced to rotate towards it, meaning rotated out of the time direction and into the spatial direction.
Over time, it points more and more toward the Earth.
Parts of the object will want to move through time at different rates.
In promoting this idea, all these YouTubers somehow managed to completely forget the basic fundamentals of general relativity. Yet, they're obviously not unintelligent individuals, so that leaves a whole new mystery. Even Matt from PBS Spacetime admitted he was still a little confused by this interpretation.
Well, speak for yourself. I'm still quite confused. This raises thorny questions.
Well, the reason for your confusion is simple. You're confused because the explanation is wrong. 100%, unequivocally, completely wrong. It's astounding that not one of these videos did their homework properly, because this entire interpretation, with its multitude of YouTuber proponents and its millions of beguiled viewers, comes undone with just a few simple considerations. Now, before we begin, we need to make some important distinctions. In Newtonian physics, gravitational attraction and gravity are one and the same thing. Masses are the source of a gravitational force, gravity, which thereby causes gravitational attraction. In general relativity, however, gravitational attraction is only an apparent phenomenon. It's fake. Meanwhile, gravity and curvature become one and the same thing. Where you have curvature, you have gravity. Where you have accelerating frames of reference, you have apparent gravitational attraction. So the first important takeaway here is that this apparent gravitational attraction is not gravity. Half of these videos don't understand whether they're trying to explain the cause of apparent gravitational attraction or the cause of actual gravity, i.e., space-time curvature. Being separate phenomena, these two concepts actually require separate explanations. And we'll get to that later. But at the moment, this doesn't matter, because none of these videos succeed at explaining either phenomenon. They're all wrong on all counts. At a place like near the surface of the Earth, where the gravitational field is essentially uniform, objects seem to be drawn together. So, all good, right? Nope. Why? Because the equivalence principle. The equivalence principle tells us that a uniform gravitational field is actually just an accelerating frame of reference. There is no gravity there. It's just an accelerated frame of reference. All right, let's return to the surface of the Earth. You're probably most accustomed to experiencing gravity here in your day-to-day life. It might shock you to learn then that at the surface of the Earth, there is no gravity, none whatsoever. The reason the apple falls to the Earth is due to the fact that you, the observer, are accelerating upwards through space at 9.8 meters per second squared. You and the ground beneath you are literally rushing up to meet the apple, as well as towards anything else that might happen to be falling at that moment. And that is the true cause of apparent gravitational attraction. The fact that you're accelerating when you believed yourself to be stationary. No single mass is truly ever at rest with respect to itself. This portion of the surface of a spherical mass, for instance, is accelerating out from the opposite portion of that mass by a certain amount, while that opposite portion is also accelerating away, but in the opposite direction. In fact, every portion of a given mass is accelerating away in a radially outwards fashion from the rest of the mass. Now, such masses don't blow apart into 100 pieces, because real gravity, space-time curvature, steps in here to ensure the space-time manifold is warped in just the right way as to compensate for all that outward acceleration, and thus produce a stable configuration. Hence, we have the appearance of a universal attraction affecting all bodies, because every single mass in the universe is literally accelerating towards every other single mass. Everyone has confused for either actual space-time curvature or apparent gravitational attraction. But Idealist's mistake here, like all the others, is that he interprets the space-time diagram as being actual space-time. That is, he thinks these objects are actually curving through time and space, simply because they're curving on the diagram. He conflates curved lines on a space-time diagram with space-time curvature. Ready? Watch. As you can see, it's just a simple coordinate transformation. Specifically, it's a coordinate transformation mapping a parabola to a straight line. So basically, all of YouTube got tricked by a coordinate transformation.
I'm 90% sure that these claims originated from anti-flat earthers, because you see the explanation for relativity, and how are they going to defend that in a debate? They have to say that the mass is accelerating outwards towards every other mass. Then they have to have an expanding universe that's not growing. It's just a big chain reaction of horseshit. So you see why they use tactics and try and project onto us. They don't want to have to defend that because it doesn't work on a globe.
To a new signs a mirror galaxy. They'll see Bob's ugly face. What the Bob's time traveling telescope capture. That the bomb won't be a damn velociraptor. Do you think you are the freaking space probe? There is no such thing as time traveling telescope. I don't bullshit. We can't see back in time. I don't bullshit. I don't believe Einstein. Say we find space has ascent, and we stop back in time. Our space makes sounds, we're backwards in time. I call bullshit, we can't see back in time. I call bullshit, I don't believe Einstein. I call bullshit, next they'll say we find space has ascent, and we stop back